We use the school announcements for some of ours, but we also have a Facebook page, a Twitter page, an Instagram page, because we started off with Facebook, and my students told me that only old people use Facebook. So then we added a Twitter, and then they said, coach, everybody's on Instagram. So now we got them all. I also use Google Classroom, have all the kids sign up for a Google Classroom. And then we use Team Reach. And I tell my parents and my players, with those avenues, if I make an announcement, you should be able to know that announcement. And on Team Reach, we put the both the players and the parents on the Team Reach. And yet we still have some miscommunications going on. I introduced my coaching staff. Unfortunately, my coaching staff has changed. Fortunately, it's because our coaching staff has grown. As our teams got bigger, our coaching staff has gotten bigger. Tell the kids the equipment they need. For flag football, I tell them they need to get a mouthpiece. This year they have to have a water bottle, hand sanitizer, and a face covering. I also put in there an athlete information sheet. I learned because of COVID, I have added their home address now because we had just gotten our team spirit, team shirts in the Friday before we shut down for COVID, and I'm still trying to track people down. But that lets me know, gives me an idea when they sign up who my athletes are, who my partners are. If I have any previous experience in any sports, especially with football or track, whichever season it is. And I always attach the physical forms to that and give them the deadline for the physicals, because I tell them you can't practice without one, so you might as well get a head start. One of the things that I stress is the sports, our philosophy, and our philosophy here at Bedford North Lawrence is based on the IHSA's philosophy that we have to hold everybody accountable. Otherwise, we're teaching individuals with intellectual disabilities that they can't be viable members of our community. So what that translates to, our philosophy is that it's down here further, but I'll start off. When I refer to an athlete, I refer to anybody on my team. On our team, we do not distinguish between athletes and partners. It is my dream that no one ever knows who the athletes and who the partners are. And so our philosophy is that every athlete struggles with something and they have to learn to overcome it. Whether that's a disability, whether that's a problem at home, problem with a boyfriend or girlfriend, everybody's got something they have to get over. We are a family. Our philosophy is once you're part of the Unified Sports Program, you're always a part of the Unified Sports Program. You don't kick your sibling out of the family. We don't kick anybody out of our family. And we do not use a buddy system. Everybody's responsible for everybody. Everybody's accountable to everybody. And we want to blur the lines between athlete and partner as much as possible. Everybody is held to accountability, sportsmanship, and being a champion everywhere they go. It is our philosophy that in order to be a champion, you have to live the life of a champion. You have to be a champion not only on the field of play, but you have to be a champion at practice, in the classroom, in the hallways, at home, and in the community. And that leads into, they are the example. A lot of people look to the Unified Sports Programs to see what inclusion is, to see how we should treat others. And so I hold my athletes up to the standard that they are the example. And then we expect every athlete to set goals for themselves and to find someone who holds them accountable. We expect everybody to be at practice on time and no excuses. We even take it to the point that, you know, if the family's getting into the car and one person's running late, everybody's late. One person's late to practice without talking to the coaches first, then everybody gets in trouble. They're not allowed to make any excuses, but accept their consequences. They need to model competitive spirit, but sportsmanship always. We do at least one community service project every year. I believe that part of Unified Sports is teaching kids how to be leaders. And so our track team every year, before our first home track meet, we go around and we spend a practice cleaning up the campus of the school. And we stress that they need to take pride in their school. They get to represent their school, so they need to have pride in it. Our flag football team usually helps with our county Special Olympics program. And we have done other service projects in the community just to help them with that. And then the biggest thing is I have learned parent expectations. I have learned that with Unified, I've had to set some rules for my parents. We now ask parents to submit pictures to us, and then we will post them on social media unless it's their student, because we originally had parents pointing out athletes and partners, and we didn't want that. I've had to explain to some of my parents that I'm so glad that they're there and I'm glad that they're supporting their kids, but they need to do it from a distance and let them be independent. Let them be on the sidelines with their teammates, and we'll talk to them after we're done. And our expectations are that we're going to have fun, but it is kind of more fun when you win. So we strive to win. And that's it for my section. Hopefully we'll have some time at the end of this that we can answer some questions. We have another presenter, Todd Sheely, who can't be here today, but he made us a nice video.
You might want to put share computer audio. It should be on top.
Brooke, are you sharing that?
Yes.
Why don't you let me take a shot at it?
Okay.
Hello, and I hope this finds everybody doing well. Unfortunately, I'm not able to be with you today. I've got some previous commitments. But my name is Todd Sheely. I am the Unified Track Coach at Elkhart High School, formerly Elkhart Memorial and Elkhart Central. I was at Elkhart Memorial. So I just wanted to walk you guys through a few things that I did when we started. This would have been our 4th year, but some things that I did when it came to marketing, recruiting, etc. We started out with 16 kids. We didn't have uniforms. I was the boys soccer coach at the time, so we took our team photo in boys soccer uniforms. So that was interesting to kick us off. We only had 2 meets to begin with, and then an invite, and then sectionals. So it was not very daunting to begin with. We tried to just figure out the rules, figure out how partners and athletes would work together, and just kind of see how things went. And for us, it went from 62 our first year to then 32 to then 48 to this year we would have had around 44, 45 had we been able to have a season. As I said, we went from 16 to 32 to 48, and along the way we learned a few things. We spoke to other coaches that we competed against to figure out how they did their programs, and things ended up working out for us pretty well. We were state champions in 2018. We were third place in 2019. So we've done fairly well in the competition part, but let me back up and tell you how we got there. So in our first year, when we only had 16, I was the boys soccer coach, so we had a few soccer players. I had two girls basketball players in class that we were able to talk into doing it. And really, it's just finding kids that maybe want to do a spring sport that aren't sure if they fit into the baseball, or maybe they like to run, but they don't like the traditional track with 70, 80 kids out there. It might be too much for them. So what we started to do is we reached out to coaches to see if they had athletes or partners, didn't really matter, but if they had participants that were interested in doing a spring sport, kind of an up-and-coming spring sport, to see how they felt. And so we got feedback from coaches, and then from there we reached out to teachers. I put together a Google form that I sent to teachers and just said, do you have any students in class that aren't really involved in anything here at the school, but you think are good, well-rounded students, or a student who maybe could use a little softening, and someone that could maybe use some enjoyment and happiness. And so we added students through that method. The other thing we started to do is after the first year is in the months of October, November, December, January, we had what we called Unified nights. And one night we played Unified soccer. One night we did Unified basketball. One night we did kind of a kickball / wiffle ball. We had two things going. One night we did a Christmas reindeer event, which was relays. So we marketed all of that. We posted that on our Twitter, and I encourage you to get a Twitter or some sort of social media. But we also put that in the staff announcements, and so staff could see exactly what we were doing. They could get an idea of who our student athletes were. The other thing that helped us is when we did win, our school recognized the value in the sport, but they also recognized that it is an IHSA sport. So all of our kids got state championship rings. They got letter jackets. And so when you see 30, 40 kids that maybe never would have worn a letter jacket wearing those around school, that's a lot of positivity. And I think that's one of the best approaches you can make is get the kids t-shirts, invite the staff to meets to work an event. We had teachers that would come and work the long jump pit. They would take times for us because our student athletes, specifically our athletes, maybe never got to participate in a school sport. So their parents were excited. We would make videos and interview the parents about how happy they are and what it brought for their student. And then we put all these things together and we sent them out, and just the feed. One thing we did decide to do at Elkhart Memorial is after our second year, there really was not a need per se of to have traditional track members participate in Unified. Early on, we may have had 2 or 3 in our first couple years that were JV traditional track runners that would help us in meets throughout the season. But after that second year, going into our third year, we decided against that. And it wasn't that we didn't want those kids. It's just that our team was becoming a size that was almost unmanageable with the amount of coaching staff that we had. So we also went to our school board, and they recognized the importance of inclusion in unified sports. And so they actually got us paras. So now at practice, we have 2 paras who are paid an hourly rate, who are at practice to work with those student athletes who might need a little bit of extra attention. They also go with us to meets, again, paid their hourly rate, which I know is not why we do any of this, is the amount of money. And that helped. what it did is it allowed the special education department then to see what was going on. They could go back and tell stories of this partner and this athlete working together in a 4x1, or the quarterback of the football team who was on our unified track team for 4 years. All 4 years he was on the starting quarterback, 4 years. Pretty awesome. How he then started on his free period, instead of taking a study hall, he would go down and he would work in the special education rooms alongside his teammates, his partners. And I think that sent a great message. We started to get kids that were like, hey, we want to just come and help at the meet. We don't have time because we've got to work, but we just want to see it. I think if you can sell your sport initially, once people see it live and in action, you won't have to sell it anymore. So once again, my name is Todd Sheely. My email is msheely, SHEELY, at elkhart.k12.in.us. You can also follow us at Lions UT on Twitter, and I'm happy to help answer any questions. I've had schools that are close to us come in and watch how we do practices. I've gone to them and answered questions. And really, we just want to make the entire state the best unified sports program we can. So just to wrap it up, I think the more you can market it from a social media standpoint, and I also think including fellow coaches and teachers in your recruiting process is very vital. So again, I wish you all the best of luck. Hopefully you've enjoyed the day so far and continue to, and stay safe and healthy, everybody.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen with you. And I'm doing communication. So my name is Brooke Fleener. I am the head coach for Unified Track at Bloomington High School North. So I begin every season with a call out meeting. We use our announcements page to put our call out meeting on. That is also on a listserv that's emailed to parents weekly. We also hang up flyers around the school about the call out meeting. And then at the actual call out meeting, I hand out a flyer about what is unified sports and what is unified track. And so I did link an attachment just so that when you get this presentation, you can kind of go back and not have to really recreate the wheel. And so I give a description of what unified sports are, what our goal is as a team. I do distinguish between athletes and peer athletes, but then once our season starts, everyone is an athlete because I was an athlete in high school. And so no one on our team knows, just like Mike, who's the athlete and who's the peer athlete. We work together as a family and as a team. I include what our events are, so that people that maybe have not done track just think it's running. There's also long jump and shot. I distinguish what time our practices are. I'm very transparent when it comes to what the expectations of our team are at the call-out meeting. A lot of our students that participate also have jobs or other commitments, so I want to let them know what time I expect that they're at our practice. I also include a parent meeting that's usually the first week of season, just to help with communication on our team. I go through how meets are scored. We have a lot of students that want to know how they're scored, and so I put that on there after a few years. I participate. I include the physical form and let them know when those have to be turned in. So uh-oh. I think I deleted it. So go back to my slide here. Apologize. So that's what I include at the beginning of the season. the first week, we have a mandatory parent meeting. That's where I always include an agenda. I always have our parents and athletes sign up for some kind of a group messaging system. We've used Remind in the past, but lately we've been using GroupMe just because I can attach the calendar to it also and have it automatically remind. So that's a fun feature of GroupMe. I show our parents and athletes at the parent meeting. All of our athletes have to attend as well, because I think it's informative for them to know that their parents and I and our team are all on the same page. How to access our online forms through our school. There's 3 pages, and we've in the past had difficulty of accessing those. So I show the parents on the projector of how to access those forms and complete them that go along with the physical form. I show them how to access our event link, which is our school athletic calendar that we use. I display our social media outlets. We have an Instagram and a Facebook and a Twitter, but we mainly use our Instagram. And so you're welcome to follow us at BHSN Unified Track. During the meet season, I have this meet checklist about what to bring to a meet. And you're welcome when this presentation is sent out to click on the links. I don't want to have to delete going back again. But just, reminding the kids, we laminate them for some of our students that need that checklist reminder, but they bring their tank, they bring their shorts, their tennis shoes, water bottle, if they wear spikes, so things like that. I give a bus departure list for all of our meets at this parent meeting of what time I expect their student to be at school ready to go on the bus. In the past, that's been a big problem for our team as it's growing. So I give that at the parent meeting. And then just, a reminder, just like any good relationship, communication is key. You feel like you repeat yourself a million times, and using different ways of communication and constant reminders will help support your unified team to run smoothly. Like I said before, you're welcome to take examples and, change the examples to meet your needs. I know as a new coach, it's kind of overwhelming. So if any of those forms can be adapted to flag football or bocce, feel free to grab those as well. And then, we're in this together. Not sure how our school year is going to look, but we did a lot of Zoom practices. Even though we knew our season for track was over, it's just great in that schedule that they were used to getting on and having physical fitness. And it's so important for mental health as well. So maybe your season will be on or off, but just continuing to have that connection with kids and allowing them to see their peers, I think, is really important during this time. So that is all I have. Do you guys have any questions for either Mike or I?
We did a great job.
Is there any way you could share that meet checklist, or just kind of go through what's on it so we get an idea of maybe some things we're not thinking of?
Yeah. Let me pull it up a different way here, and maybe it won't cut everything out. I'm learning this technology, as I'm sure some of you are too, but so let me pull it up here, and then I'll share my screen. I'm a very visual person teaching special ed, so that's kind of where that came into play.
While she's looking up her checklist, one of the things that I do for both track and flag football is before the kids can get on the bus, we go through a visual checklist. They have to show me, they have to have their uniform on. They have to show me if they have their spikes or their cleats. They have to show me that they have all their mouthpiece for flag football. Whatever they need, they have to visually show me. I check every person on their way out the door. And if they don't have it, they don't get on the bus until they have it. And amazingly, a couple bus trips, they start remembering it a little bit better. We can get on the bus a little bit faster.
Mike, would it be okay if I made a statement here?
Of course.
I'm going to share. Oops. She
Oops,
beat
I'm
me to it.
sorry.
No, Brooke, you go first.
Okay, so this is my meat checklist. And like I said, I laminate it for some of our kids that need that reminder weekly, or sometimes we have 2 meets in a week. So we hand out track bags. So every kid has a BHSN Unified track bag. Their singlet, their black shorts, their warm up, especially when the weather's cold, because then they sit there and shiver. Their tennis shoes and spikes, their water bottle. And then if they need personalized snacks, we have team moms that bring snacks, and we also do Subway. And then I make sure that they label their bag, because we have close to 70 kids on our track team now. So when you have 70 track bags that all look the same, it's nice to have like a luggage tag or ribbon or something to identify your bag with. So that is what I give.
All right, Lee.
Well, okay. A couple of things. If anybody's looking for handouts that you've seen from anybody, if you put that in the chat room, we'll try to get those to you. As a matter of fact, we'll try to figure out where we can post everybody's handouts so you can steal from each other, which is the greatest form of flattery. I want to make a comment about Todd's presentation, because there's actually been a rule change since he started. So I'm going to share my screen here, and I think that should be it. Yeah. I would encourage all of you to become familiar with the rules. And there's 2 places you really have to look. You have to look in the bylaws, and you have to look in the Unified Flag Football rules. Bylaws are the big rules, and there were some changes this year to the bylaws as it affects Unified Sports. Unified Sports is a separate section. It's 200, Rule 200 through 203, and everything you see in gray was a change this year. So you can see there were quite a few changes this year. But the one I want to talk about is right here in 200 -1.1, definition of participants. Oh, sorry, the next one, 200.
1.2.
Yeah, 1.2. This is what Todd was talking about, how he used JV track runners on his team. Well, when we first started Unified Sports, schools were having a hard time finding enough partners. So we allowed them to pick up JV. The only thing we said was you couldn't be in the boys or girls track tournament and be in the Unified tournament. You had to pick one or the other. Well, we've gone further, and we're going to make them distinct sports this year. So in essence, as soon as a kid runs or participates in track, as boys track or girls track, they become ineligible for the rest of the year in Unified track. And the same is true in football and flag football. So you can't pick up freshman football players at the end of the season and put them on your Unified football team, and you can't pick up freshmen or JV track people to put on your Unified team. This is something that's going to be posted as well, so everybody can see the changes this year, but we're trying to get everything cleaned up, and I think we did a good job. And Mike, I might suggest you got a young man here, Mitch Bonar, who participated as an athlete in Unified track. Then his coach invited him back after he graduated to coach. Maybe he's got some suggestions for the group too. Mitch, can you unmute yourself and tell them a little bit about what it was like to come back as a coach?
Sure. So I ran Unified, and we were kind of like I was kind of part of like I don't know if it was the first, but the first unified coaching staff, unified coaching staff. So we, due to my disabilities, I decided that going to college wasn't in the books right away. So I really wanted to go back to my school and give back because I learned how important Unified was to me. And I got to coach my sister, and, and she ended up winning us a state runner-up ring, which I'm rocking. And but I always um, enjoyed coaching, and I realized that when I was coaching that after all the cool gifts and all the ring, the championship, the leather jacket, I realized that what was really important was my friendships that I built for Unified, which I still have to this day. The thing about Unified and coaching is it's about building relationships over anything else and building that family that we keep hearing about. Because without that family, I tell you this, I probably wouldn't be going to college at Ivy Tech. And now, as a young man, currently a university student at Indiana Wesleyan living on campus, thanks to Unified and all the great inclusion that I felt in high school.
I want to tell everybody a little bit more about Mitch. Mitch was on the path that many of your athletes are when they graduate. He had a great time with Unified Track, built a lot of wonderful relationships, but most of the partners took off for college. Mitch didn't have much of a plan, and he spent basically the whole first year after graduation doing nothing until the coach invited him back to assist as an assistant coach. So that was a huge step. But I would also tell you those friends who went off to college kept pushing Mitch, and he took a class at Ivy Tech and got an A, and then took 2 classes, and then took 2 more classes. And at the end of 2 years of going to Ivy Tech, he had a 3.3 and went from probably a path that was going to lead to complete dependence on his parents for the rest of his life. And instead, now he's living on campus, Indiana Wesleyan, getting pretty close to earning his bachelor's degree. So I'm proud of him personally, but there's a real story there, I think, for everybody that it doesn't stop when they graduate. You can pull them back in and continue to encourage them and inspire them like many of us were inspired by our high school coaches. So thank you all for what you do for people like Mitch.
And to piggyback on that, I keep in touch with a lot of my former athletes because we feed them over to the county Special Olympics program. They can continue playing flag football. They can continue running track, play basketball. And I think every program that's been around has their success stories. I have a young man on our first track team, was one of our athletes. He now has a job at Cook Incorporated. He now makes more money than I do, I think. I know he's got nicer cars than I do. He went on to get his driver's license, which he never expected to get. I have one of my assistant coaches in flag football and track is a former athlete of mine. And I got another partner that's come back to help me with flag football as well. And I have to say, just the confidence of everybody. One of the things that I like to point out to new coaches and new parents is that we had one young man who had been with us since we started, and he had Down syndrome. And I like to show them at practices that we do drop drills where they have to run backwards, and we run hills. And I like to point to him and say, medically speaking, he's not supposed to be doing that. Individuals with Down syndrome historically have been said that they don't have enough coordination to run hills, to run backwards. And he does, because no one's ever told him he couldn't do it. And his mother, when I first met her, looked at me and said, well, what can he do after high school? And one of my proudest moments was she came to me during Special Olympics basketball season and told me that she went to her doctor, and her doctor was like, well, you got to remember, you know, there's limits to him. And she looked at the doctor and said, what can't he do? And in just 4 years, 5 years, she's gone from what can he do to what can't he do. And that's the beauty of Unified Sports.
And I would just like to say, I know, Mitch, you came to our school when we first started Unified Sports and did a convocation with our entire student body. And your message rang home with a lot of our student athletes. And I can't thank you enough for coming to our school and starting this program for us. And you're such an inspiration, bud. So keep it up.
Does anybody have any last minute questions? We got about 4 or 5 minutes left.
All I want to say is I'm proud to be a former Unified athlete and coach. And I am so proud of this group of coaches and coaches that will become, because you guys are just going to change lives one person at a time, every one of you, just like we always do.
And I can say that it has, since starting Unified, it has changed the climate of our school and our student body. The one individual whose mom opinion changed, we were discussing getting, we've always bought patches for all of our kids whenever we've won something. And after football season, I said, well, you know, he has a Letterman's jacket, he's got patches on it. And I said, well, we can get another one for being a sectional champion. And one of the great moment was mom looked at me and said, please don't give him any more patches. We've run out of room. Because he graduated this year as probably one of the most decorated athletes in our school. And we had Miss Basketball at our school, so but he graduated right up there with them, and everybody knows him because of his confidence and what he's been able to accomplish.
I'm going to throw out one more, and Mike and Brooke, feel free to add to this. But for you new coaches, one of my big epiphanies was parents who didn't want their kids to be involved in Unified. And believe it or not, Mitch's mom was right at the top of that list. and when I said, this is going to be so incredible, why would you not want him involved? Her response was, I'm afraid this is just going to be one more way for those other kids to make fun of my son. And your best, I think, people to help recruit athletes are the parents of your current athletes, because after they see it in action, they realize it can make a huge difference, like it did to Mitch. Mike,
I would agree with
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead. I would just encourage you to use your parents. You know, you're going to have those parents that want to be there at first because their kid hasn't been in a situation like this before. And so that's where I came in with Team Moms. I also have a Team Dad. Last 2 years ago, I had a Team Grandma, just because they didn't know what to expect. And then soon they realized that they needed to step back. So they actually went to help in other areas where their student wasn't at. So if the student threw shot, they'd go to long jump, just because they needed to be there for maybe a medical reason. But they soon found love for other kids and kind of put the parents in, you know, a support group, like we're in this together type atmosphere. So use your parents to help you. Definitely.
And a successful program, even your partners are a huge asset within the school. I know my athletes and partners are the reason our program has grown. I mean, in the first year of Unified Track, we had 12 kids, just enough kids to go to sectionals. We're now up, we had over 60 kids this year. And it was, and we started off, the school culture was, oh, that's the special needs track team. And we had all of our kids saying, no, we're a track team. Oh, we're going to get kicked out.
Have a great season, everyone.
Yes, and if you need to contact any of us, we are all willing to help answer any questions, help you navigate the world of Unified.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Brooke. And thank you, Mitch, for leading that conversation.